Why am I? It's being live streamed. At any rate, it's 10:30, so we'll call this meeting to order. Is the agenda on the screen? I'm not seeing it, Robin. Or are you getting there?
It's on there. I have the Pledge of Allegiance up first.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you guys will join me.
Elizabeth's just coming.
Oh, she's coming on now? Okay.
Yeah.
Something's askew with my view here, I think, 'cause for some reason I'm only seeing black. Hold on. So we'll wait for Elizabeth to get here. This is the Results Committee ad hoc meeting. We have Mr. Earl Campbell. We have committee members Chloe Gordon and Elizabeth Hay. Is there anybody else from the board on? We're also joined with Dr. Rodriguez and Brett Fitz from the district. So we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you guys will join me for that. And don't make me do it by myself. You ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic with which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you see the agenda? Ingrid, we lost you.
Okay, there I am. I'm trying to do this on the iPad, which I don't normally do, so I apologize. We don't have any public comments. Is that correct?
No, need a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda? Ms. Gordon, Ms. Hay?
This is Gordon. I move that we approve the agenda for the Results Committee.
Okay, Ms. Hay, do you second that? Well, let's go ahead and vote. We're going to take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
So it's going to be 2 with 1 absence. Ms. Hay, are you on the line?
She's muted, so I can't tell if she's on or not.
Okay, she'll probably be coming on in just a second. And now I see the agenda. So we're making all kinds of progress here. We need a approval for the agenda. Ms. Gordon, would you mind?
She just did. How about the approval of the committee meeting minutes?
That's what I meant, committee meeting minutes. 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
I move that we approve the committee meeting minutes of May 1, 2023.
And I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so 2-0. Robin?
Add it.
Okay, so now we're getting into the real thing. We have 2 items on our agenda, which I think sort of represents the 2 aspects of this committee that we need to focus on. One, obviously, is we need to work on the superintendent evaluation instrument. That is traditionally what this committee has done. But we also got approval from the board to look at our results policy section. And I know that Ms. Gordon, I think, and Ms. Hay had a copy of the book from Coherent Governance about what the results policies are, and comparing that to what we currently have. And I think that there is a recognition, please correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, but there is a recognition that there is work to do in the results section of our Coherent Governance Manual. Does that sound correct, Ms. Gordon?
I agree.
Mr. Campbell, do you have any comments on that since you were on the board when this all started? Oh, and there's Dr. Watts. Okay. And I think Ms. Hay now is unmuted. Are you there, Ms. Hay?
Yes, I am. I was having issues with the phone, so
No.
and a headset. So anyway, I am here.
Okay, perfect. So what I was just saying is that we have 2 items on the agenda. One is to look at the results policy of the Coherent Governance Model Manual, which Ms. Cushenberry is currently showing. And if you looked at the materials from the Coherent Governance Manual, you'll see that we need, I think that there is an acknowledgement by the board that we need to put some more meat into the results policy section. And how we're going to do that, my take on it is that this committee can help kind of set up a framework and potentially do some of the initial grunt work to get that together, and hopefully for a work session where the full board would discuss the results policies. Does that sound amenable to
Yes,
everybody?
yes, that's my understanding as well.
Okay.
Mine too.
Okay, perfect. And Dr. Gwads or Mr. Campbell, if you have any questions or concerns or want to pitch in, just let me know. And then the second thing is we need to review the superintendent's evaluation. So let's start for just a minute and let's stick with the results policy section. I have thought about this a lot. I don't know how other people have taken this. I think potentially this is something that we could bring to an August work session or maybe a fall work session for the full board. Does anyone object to that time frame?
I do not. I think that is good.
Okay. So I have some thoughts about, and we just got done doing strategy here at Volunteers in Medicine, and it's a difficult thing to start and sort of get, hands around, and you want to do it with the full board, but, having all 11 members, it might take a long time. So I was thinking we could lay some groundwork. And there's a couple of ideas I had. I did some research on what other people have done this. And I think it's important to distinguish between the results that the board sets in the results policy and the district strategy and strategy setting goals. To me, from what I can gather from coherent governance, the result policy is more aspirational, and is really looking at what are the things that the board, if the board feels like it's doing a good job, what are the things that it will have in its results policy? So if that's academic achievement, if that's financial solvency, if that's culture, whatever the different goals are that we can focus on and that we can tie some of our board meetings to. So I think that, and I know there's been some talk about doing it with the district and in part of strategy, and I think we can, but I think my take on it is that the board's role is to set some goals, set a direction, sort of a big picture, aspirational goals, and then the strategy can kind of fill in behind that. And I would love to hear other people's comments on that. Mr. Campbell, you've been around for a long time. I looked back at some of our old policy, our old goals and priorities, and I know you've set a lot of them. Does that sound like a reasonable assessment?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, perfect. So to that end, I have heard over my 2.5 years, and I think even Ms. Gordon, Ms. Hay have heard that the board would like, there's some things the board would like to see more of. For example, we've talked a lot about internships and project-based learning. We hear about, arts education. These are things I think you could tie into a results section and say, this is an emphasis that the board has. The other thing I think is really interesting about the way coherent governance does their results and outcome assessment is that they set very specific metrics, but how the superintendent's evaluated is reasonable progress, right? So that you can be more aspirational and you can say something like, hey, we would love to have, if things were just going great, we would love to have 100% of kids reading at grade level. Okay, but that obviously is not something that can be accomplished in a year, but you can look back and say, are we doing things to the best of our ability, acknowledging that, there's a lot of things that can change, such as pandemics or, different things that might affect that. So it's a question of, are we making reasonable progress? And I kind of like that approach. I like having some hard metrics and aspirational goals, but then not having it, succeed or fail based on those metrics. It gives you a little more freedom to be ambitious, but recognize that the only thing we're going to be judging the superintendent on is whether or not the board finds him making reasonable progress towards those goals. Comments? Ms. Gordon, what do you think? You've been involved in this kind of stuff for a long time.
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First of all, forgive me, guys, I have vertigo. And so I'm listening. I can't read because it affects my vision, but yes, I agree with that. I was wondering where we were going in terms of rating our superintendent. I like the not pass or fail. I do like where we see progress or no progress or a little, because then that gives us something to measure by that we can, relate back to the parents and to, our principals, and of course to Dr. Rodriguez. And you're right, having been around a long time, I think, I can't speak for Dr. Rodriguez, but I think that it would be fair to him to be able to show the progress in certain areas that he's making, or where, we need to talk to him about, well, what can you do to improve? So I like that.
Good. Okay, because that's just kind of me processing a very big topic, as Dr.
Yeah.
Guaz, but this is a big bite. And these are my initial thoughts, and I am not, I'm definitely looking for other people's opinions. Dr. Rodriguez, do you want to weigh in at this point, or you want to wait till we get a little further down the road?
I would, I'll just wait. I mean, I'm listening to the conversation and, I think, you're driving at, some things that are important in terms of, last board meeting was a great example. There was a pretty hefty discussion around arts and fine arts at the last board meeting, right? So if that's an objective that we want to set, right, that the board wants to set as we move forward, right, then I think for me, the strategy around that is, what are things that we have to put in play? Like, what are things that have to be done in order to drive us in that direction, right? And then I think an evaluation or an assessment about the things that are being done, or the progress towards that sounds reasonable. And I think that's what you're getting at.
Yes. So it does move us a little bit away from what's currently in our results policy, which is very matrix and metrics driven. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having some matrix and metrics, but I think it does limit, it's hard to say, well, we're going to meet these goals, because you have to be realistic about what you can do year to year. So if we move off of the matrix and the metrics to some degree, I think that opens up some more possibilities. So the next question is, there's a couple of questions that I would like to throw out to the committee and to the other board members as well. I think there's a couple of things that we need to think about in terms of these results plans. And Carlton Dallas is not here, but he is a big fan of, and I've heard other people say that we shouldn't have 30 goals. Right? We should really
it's too many.
Yeah. The number that I've heard in the course, and this is coming from the strategy meeting I just did at Volunteers in Medicine, is, you want like maybe 3 to 5, or, a smaller number of goals. They can change from year to year a little bit, but, basically the top 5 or so things that the district really wants the superintendent to focus on in terms of outcome. Now within those, the way they do it and I've looked at a lot of different school boards that are using coherent governance, is that you have subparts to each of these goals. So you can say academic achievement is a goal, and a subpart of that can be, elementary literacy, math scores, and you can have more specifics underneath the canopy of academic achievement. Another one is like 21st century skills, that could mean communication, collaboration, citizenship, ethics, you can break those down further. So that brings up 2 questions. One, do we want to kind of gear this conversation towards a smaller number of goals, or to leave it open to a larger number of goals? So I'd like to hear some feedback on that. And number 2, do we want to have, if we're doing these goals, do we want to have like elementary literacy be a goal, or would you want to have academic achievement as a goal with elementary literacy and those sorts of things as subsets? So I would love to hear committee opinions and other board members.
So I would love to see a smaller amount of goals, because just as you pointed out, I've never seen in my professional career, for example, in counseling individuals, I'm not going to give an individual 30 goals. That's looming, and it will be unattainable. And you tend to go in micro goals. And just as you said, I'm in complete agreement as well with 3 to 5 that have sub goals. And then on the literacy front, I would say, my opinion in this matter, and again, what I know from professional workings would be also, yes, literacy would be a huge goal, which is needed. But then to your point, elementary literacy or kindergarten through second grade, we want to see this percentage of literacy would be a sub goal under that goal.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
first of all, Dr. Regas, I apologize. I didn't realize you had 30 goals. That is, wow. I am into lowering that 3 to 5, 5 to 7, but I do not see that being doable in terms of what we need to achieve. I think we need to look at what are our primary goals that we want to see. Of course, everybody's looking at reading and going back old school arithmetic, but mathematics and fine arts and things that not only are attainable, but also measurable. And I think all of your goals have to be measurable. So I am for looking at goals that are more manageable and measurable for our superintendent. But for Christmas sake, oh my gosh, let's get rid of this 30 goal initiative. So
We
I
right now
would be
have
right
zero.
there, Ingrid.
Yeah, it was funny. We don't have right now. We kind of have 0 official goals, like in the results section. But I found like from 2012, they had like 20. Robin, they had like 28, and it was in board docs, like performance goals. And I was like, woof. It just kept going. So okay, so I think what I'm hearing, and I'd like to hear from Mr. Campbell and Dr. Wads if they're available.
Hmm?
Do you want to hear?
Do you
from
have?
him?
Yeah. Oh, there's Dr. Wads, looking all medicine-y.
I don't feel like I can contribute well. I'm in the middle of patient care and I'm just trying to listen as much as I possibly can in between.
Okay, well then, if you feel the need to step in, just unmute yourself and understanding you're at work, just step right in. Otherwise, I'll stop calling on you. So to make
Okay, and
sure.
one thing I would say, I did hear the little bit of discussion of timing. If the board is going to weigh in on this in August or October or fall or whenever, Dr. Rodriguez's evaluation per his contract, his employment contract, it has very strict criteria that it has to be done in October.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can be, I think is that fair to?
Oh, yeah, and
Yeah.
the superintendent evaluation is going to be a little bit separate from this process because it's not reasonable to have, this be tied to his current evaluation, right? This is
Right, that's
more,
what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
But I didn't
What
hear
to
the
do is a
entire
two-part process.
conversation, so.
Yeah.
No, and that's not on you. We discussed that in the last meeting, that this
Okay.
was not, something in his scope for this current contract year.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll join when I can. Bye.
Yep, just shout in. Okay. Mr. Campbell, did you want to share any feedback on those sort of ideas?
I okay. Just a
we're
minute.
Okay. Well, Mr. Campbell, we'll come back to you in just a minute. So, there you go.
He's available now.
Okay, perfect.
As long as it does not cause a problem that we do the evaluation late. I can go with that, but like Dr. Rodriguez said before, he also talked about, he's the only one that's held responsible for this, and teachers are not. So I don't know how we're going to address that.
We're going to address it for sure. We're going to get onto that. We're going to have fun talking about aspirational goals and what we might want to do. And then we're going to have to get in with Mr. Fritz here and start talking numbers and data points. So, all right, well, if you don't object to that idea, then what I would probably say as a first step is we're basically going to direct this conversation towards coming up with maybe 3 to 7, a single digit. We can start with single digit. That's our goal, is to come up with 3 to 7 aspirational goals that the board would like the superintendent to align with district strategy and to make reasonable progress on. And then I think my idea, and I'm going to toss this out there as what I've thought about, and based on some research, but there are other options, is to say, what I think we could do is we've got a meeting in June. I forget the exact date, June 13th is our next board meeting. What we could do at that board meeting as part of my report, we could develop between now and then an instrument of sorts, a survey, a questionnaire to be given to all board members to sort of start gathering information from them about things they're thinking about, that they've heard in their community, or they've heard in board meetings, or they're in their experience, working in the schools, that they see as important goals to be included in this results section. And I think that questionnaire could take a couple of different, and Mr. Fritz might be able to help out with this, a couple of different tacks. We could do sort of a free text kind of questions, open-ended questions, and gather that textual data and come up with something like a word cloud, that would just sort of focus in what the board's really, that we're trying to find some consensus among 11 board members. The other option is we could have like a list of goals that we've heard between all of us contributing, things you've heard, things you've thought about, looked at from other boards, with the option for people to add their own. And we could have kind of one of those, rank your top 7, and then we could kind of weigh those out and look at which ones, that's always a real easy visual, right? You look and you say, okay, 10 of the 11 members cited academic achievement, 5 members cited, school culture, and you could kind of use that as a jumping off point for the discussion. The third option would be for each board member to come up with their own 5 goals that they personally would like to bring forward, and we could discuss, and then we could kind of look at that and see where there's some overlap and sort of bring those forward. So do you guys have any ideas on which way you think would be the best? If you think doing some sort of questionnaire to the board in advance of the work session to sort of focus the work session would be reasonable. And then if we did that, which one of those 3 approaches do you think would be the best to take?
I love that idea, and I think it would be important to give them a heads up. I personally like the idea of asking them, explaining, first of all, where we're trying to have this hang in terms of the aspirational goals, but that reflect the district as a whole. Giving them that backdrop of where we're trying to head with this, but then allowing them to tell us their top 5. And then exactly to your point is what I was thinking while you were speaking is let's find the overlap.
Okay. Ms. Gordon?
I have a question, Madam Chair. And it goes back to what Dr. Quad says, knowing that there's certain parameters of Dr. Rodriguez's contract and his evaluation. This will not take effect this school year, right?
Correct.
We're talking, okay, so I think we need to make that clear that we are still in the investigative state, I guess.
Yes, this would be for his next year, so 2023, 2024 school year.
Okay, so my question would be, I know June is not a work session, right? That's a regular meeting?
Regular meeting.
Okay, so we're looking at a possible work session after we get their results from what they are looking for.
Yeah, my actual timeline was thinking the June meeting, I report out what we discussed and we start talking about, the conversation we've had and presenting a questionnaire saying, look, we were going to send this out to board members for feedback. Then I was thinking in the July business meeting, we could have enough, because we're going to have to meet as a committee before then and sort of present the collation of the data, right? We're gonna do some, if we do the ranking, we'll have that out. Like, here are the ones that really jumped out that pretty much everybody mentioned. Here's some other ones to have another second discussion and feedback where we can have a talk about it. And then in August, in theory, we would have all that data presented and have the full board work session to try and approve, 3 to 7 goals. So that's kind of what I'm thinking is timeline. That gives the board 2 opportunities. The first sort of, initial data gathering, and then we'll present sort of some analyzed data points and then have a second discussion and then the work session.
Okay, well, I know Mr. Campbell had a question about this process, I think. Could he say that again? It was something I think that I guess he was trying to make sure that we're not changing now or making some changes to Dr. Rodriguez's evaluation, because we can't do that without the full board. But could he restate his concern about this, please?
My concern is that we hold Dr. Rodriguez responsible for the achievement, but we don't hold teachers and principals. You know, that's my concern.
Yes, and I share that concern. And what I'll tell you, Ms. Gordon, is we're about to move, if we're going to move into his evaluation discussion. And actually, this committee's job is to kind of assess the assessment instrument every year. And there were some flaws, and there were some pretty critical flaws that we uncovered last year that we said, this year, we're going to bring this back to the committee. We're going to fix it. So we're going to have that discussion in just a minute. But I think that I would like to get a process for starting to add these results in prior to the 2023-2024 school year, so we don't end up back, so he can start planning his strategy, right? And so that's what I'm thinking. The first thing on this agenda is we'll just talk about if this seems like a reasonable plan coming out, a reasonable framework, I guess, coming out of this committee to sort of focus the board in and help develop a handful of goals that will be in our results section that should drive a lot of his evaluation for the next time. But we're going to get to his current evaluation here directly.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So does the questionnaire idea appeal to you, Ms. Gordon?
It does. It appeals to me because I think that's a great way to gather information and data so that we can accurately go forth with our processes. So I agree with the questionnaire.
And do you like the idea of giving between the three of us, and we can do this by email, we can come up with sort of a comprehensive list of everything we can think of and let people rank it, understanding that they would be able to add their own as well. So if we can send that out.
I think that's fair because this is a great undertaking, and
It is.
so and I think we all need to be because it is very key to our superintendent's livelihood basically in this process. So I want to make sure we do it and do it right. So yes.
And I will put in my report, and I want to make sure it's understood that it is very important. We as the result committee are just here to sort of help, formulate the questions, but that it is a full board discussion, right? This is requires everybody. We're not going to come up. We're not going to pre-do some of these results. So, okay. Then what I think I'm going to do, if you guys are amenable, is I will, I'm going to send out an email, and I'll just do like a Google form or something where we can start compiling a list. And, we already know a lot of them, right? And I'll take ones off of other district result committees. I'll take some of our other previous performance goals, like just a lot of different sources, and try and come up with a pretty exhaustive list of potential goals. So I anticipate that being somewhere in the 30 to 50 range. And then people can kind of pick some, we'll start ranking that out. And then we'll make sort of the first cut. It's like an audition. There'll be the first cut of goals, and then we'll come back in July and have a second cut of goals. And then we'll have the actual performance in August, if that sounds good to you guys.
Yes, and my only suggestion with that would be, and this is just me throwing out an idea.
Please,
I'm not saying anything's incorrect, is just
same.
overwhelming people with the amount of information. So perhaps we sort of go ahead and put into practice what we're anticipating with this survey and have larger goals that then include sub goals. So instead of throwing out 50 as line items, going ahead and categorizing those.
Okay.
And offering them as sort of a grouping.
Yep.
Rather than here are 50 because I I think people will get bogged down in, well, that's important too. Well, am I really placing this over that? And if we sort of practice what we plan to present, you know, and go ahead and categorize them, that may be more helpful. That's just where my head goes.
Yeah, no, I like that. So in other words, what I think I hear you saying is we'll say academic achievement as opposed to math, reading, art, in listing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think that's awesome. So I'm used to functioning, you know, in clouds and Google Docs and things as well. And I think that's great because we can share ideas, you know, more flexibly. So I like this work method of going back and forth in that manner. So I'm appreciative of that. So thank you.
Perfect. And then what I might do too is say, like, people can make a comment, like if they're saying academic achievement, you know, if that includes something specific to them, they can add that in there as a, so we just have,
Absolutely.
okay, I like that. Does that sound good, Miss Gordon?
Actually, it does, because I think simply as possible, it is better. I agree. So that we all understand what it is we're looking at and what we're trying to attain in making this possible. So yeah.
Okay. So then what I'm
Thank
going
you.
to do is I will send out an email probably over the weekend with an initial draft of this, and you guys comment, add, delete, and we'll just kind of do some back and forth, and then we'll present it. We've got till June, so we can kind of tweak it until we get something that we think we can present to the board in June. Okay, so if there's no other comments or questions on that, we will move into the current evaluation for Dr. Rodriguez. Any final comments or questions? Okay, Robin, can you pull up that policy? This is the current, and I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at it, but when I was going through all of this, if you look to the, there's 4 sections to coherent governance, right? There's governing commitments, board superintendent relations, OEs, and results. And we really focus on the OEs, which is great because that's, how the district runs. But if you'll scroll down, Robin, we actually have in policy, and I didn't know this, sadly, until all the way to the bottom. Let's see, where is it? Okay, number 7. So this is board superintendent relationship, what is it? BSR 5, section 7. And it actually, and this is the policy is actually superintendent accountability. And it sort of addresses how we are going to hold him accountable for the things that, he's doing. It actually talks about his evaluation. And it says each October, which is in his contract, correct me if I'm wrong, each October, the board will conduct a formal summative evaluation of the superintendent. The summative evaluation will be based upon data collected during the previous academic year. So we're currently collecting, right, for the 2022-2023 academic year. From the monitoring of results and operational expectations policies. And this was a board approved policy in February of 2021. Now, Robin, if you'll pull up what we've been using, and we just started using that right as COVID. So a reminder to the committee, what happened is when Dr. Rodriguez came on board, this was his, the tool that was picked by the previous results committee. This is the Michigan State School Board Association tool that they use. It was picked by the committee in, I think, June of 2019 to evaluate Dr. Rodriguez. And of course, that was coming out of a period of turmoil, particularly in relationship to the board superintendent relationship. It was not until the end of 2019 that we actually, as a board, adopted coherent governance. And then unfortunately, right about the time we adopted coherent governance, COVID hit, and it sort of all bets were off the table, right? And everything just got very flexible out of necessity. So we've kind of stuck with this Michigan School Board Association. But if you'll notice, like if you look at what Robin's got up here, section A4, materials and background. Professional standards for educational leaders. Oh, can you scroll down just a little bit, Robin? I'm sorry. They actually reference specific. There's like 2, 7, and 9. They'll say professional standards 2, 7. I don't know. I don't have it up on mine. but they reference standards that we don't even have, that are Michigan state specific standards. Now, a lot of the material in in this tool lines up really nicely with our OEs, like this board relations. I guess I should pull it up on my thing over here. But the different sections, right? It talks about community stakeholder relationship with stakeholders. And let's see.
Staff relations, it has
Right.
community, staff relations,
Thank you.
business, finance.
So
Struct-
now, I think it was my first year that we did this because we didn't have, I mean, basically they siloed all of the data from the testing. And that was this Michigan tool, these sections were like 85% of his evaluation. Is that right, Robin?
Different sections of it had different percentages.
Well, so when you add up all the different sections,
Yes.
that is currently weighted. Yeah, can we get down?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it. For example, staff relations weight is 15%.
Right.
And so once you get all A through E, you get 100%.
Yeah, it would
But
be.
that
Yep.
100% is only like 45% last year, right, Robin? Or Mr. Fritz, do you know off the top of your head?
It was 85% last year, and student achievement was 25%, teacher recruitment. So here's what the total percent, the compiling percentage
Yeah,
was.
last year it was 45. Yeah, in 2022 it was 85% because we didn't have any metrics. So the professional practice is those A through E Michigan sections that align to standards that are specific to state of Michigan. Then we also have, hold there for just a second, Robin. We have the student achievement, which I think is kind of what that results policy is supposed to be capturing. These were additional, and Earl or Dr. Guadz hop in. These were additional Beaufort County specific items that were added, kind of more or less added to the end of the Michigan tool, right, Robin? Or is that from Michigan as well?
All of it was from Michigan, but
Okay.
it was formulated to fit our needs. So it wasn't just the standards. The standards also pertain to Beaufort County standards. They weren't Michigan. So as they went through that, they took the format, but they tailored it to Beaufort counties.
Okay. But when it says like achievement 3.0, gap closure 3.0, that's Michigan? Because I don't know what 3.0 means.
That's what the previous board decided. That was the number that they came up with.
Okay. What does it mean?
But I'm right there with you. I'm like, what is the 3.0?
That part I can't answer.
No
Dr.
worries.
Rudd.
I don't want to totally dwell
But
on
see,
it.
this is part of the
It
problem.
was, I
is we
think it
have-
was part of a math calculation, but I can't answer
So to
to.
Mr. Yeah, to Mr. Campbell's point, there's some flaws with this tool. And I think that part of the problem is that, a lot of this ties into standards that are not necessarily the same between Michigan and South Carolina. And to Mr. Campbell's point, specifically, it holds the superintendent accountable for student achievement testing scores, but not in Michigan, teachers are accountable in their classroom for those scores. The principal is accountable to the school, and then sort of by natural extension, the superintendent's accountable for the district. We don't have any of that in South Carolina. So, I think Mr. Campbell raises a valid concern that we're holding the superintendent accountable for things that we are not holding teachers and principals, right? So it's like requiring someone at, the CEO of the company to meet certain metrics when you're not, requiring the managers to meet those same metrics. And I think that's a little bit of the disconnect between Michigan and South Carolina. Additionally, we don't even know what all these numbers exactly mean. And then the thing that happened last year on the financial oversight is apparently, and I don't know, Robin, if it was Michigan. Yeah, thank you. So you can see ineffective, minimally effective. We basically graded him on a 4.0 scale, right? Highly effective being an A, 4 points, effective being a 3 point, like a B, et cetera. So when it says adhere to budget,
That part wasn't Michigan. That was with the results committee. Those numbers are what the results committee came up with.
Okay. And I don't know if that was way back because anyway, at any rate, so some of this is Beaufort County, some of it's Michigan. As I understand it, that by law, we can't be under budget, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. So for him to get an A, he would have to be 2% under budget. He's not allowed to be under budget. So the best we could give him was a 3.0, because he did come on budget. And as I think a lot of us, I mean, we've gotten awards after awards after awards for our budgeting and for our finance department and everything. And yet the highest score they could get was a B. So that was something we definitely wanted to fix. And then I don't know about the teacher recruitment and retention. Is that Beaufort County or Michigan?
It all is Beaufort County. All of it is Beaufort County. They took it and changed like teacher recruitment. That's Beaufort County. They took the format from Michigan, how it's laid out in the state, that was from Michigan. But the
So what's
wording.
the standards for the professional excellence or something? What is that referencing to?
Go back. What did you say?
There, like it says, professional standards for education leaders. What are those?
You have to go look up what E10 is. Let's go back. So if you look down where it says artifacts that shows as evidence, those are the things that Dr. Rodriguez used to show how, what he did to meet those things.
Right, those are the indicators. What are the standards? Where do I find standards for educational leaders? Apparently at least 1 through 6. I thought those were
146. I have to go back and look. I don't know. I can't answer that right now.
Mr. Campbell, do you know?
What is that?
Under each of these
So
sections, it says
under
professional-
10. So right here, E10, professional knowledge, professional standards for educational leaders. And we used 1, 4, and 6. So I have to go back and pull up what, like for E9.
Those come from, it's an organization called the Council of Chief State School Officers. And
Right.
it's from like state superintendents. But then they have just a set of professional standards for educational leaders. So it's more of a national organization that serves as an umbrella. There's no requirement to it, but it just serves as an umbrella and sort of a guidance on what they consider. Most of those standards are yeah, I believe there's like 8 standards or so, and I think they focus on different aspects such as instructional leadership, things like that, right? They don't necessarily tie and say it's student achievement, but it's what do you do as an instructional leader, right? And so what are different components? It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier when you were mentioning different goals such as internships or arts, right? And so then what are the strategies or the things that you put in play in order to accomplish that? So it's the same idea with, like, for example, instructional leadership. Instructional leadership would be, what strategies are you employing to impact literacy, right?
So reasonable progress.
It's correct. It's not exactly saying we will be at 57% or 92% or a specific number like that. It's more about the practices that you're employing to positively impact something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just was trying to get a handle on whether it was, if this is how much of Beaufort County is actually in these. It sounds like it's a fairly national, fairly broad application type of instrument.
It is broad. Yeah.
Okay.
It's broad because you want to have that application to it, and it's a Council of Chief Schools is all of the state superintendents from across the country.
Gotcha. Okay. But thanks for clearing that up. So Miss Gordon and Miss Hay, this is the issue that, you know, I don't even really, I'm not 100% sure what is, you know, specific to our school district and what is sort of a national standard. And we have spent a fair amount of time crafting operational expectations, which are, you know, values of the school district. We actually have a policy that says that we are supposed to conduct a summative evaluation based on operational expectations and results. So my thoughts are this, and I'm going to throw it out there, and I'm very interested in some discussion. I think at a minimum, the operational expectations that we've been reviewing throughout the year should be 50% of our superintendent's evaluation. The other 50% going forward, if we can get good results policies together, should be results policies. That is what our policy says, and that is what Coherent Governance has as their summative evaluation of superintendent. I don't think since we don't have any results policies at the moment, we can't really hold them accountable to those. But I think at least 50% weight of the superintendent evaluation should come from the monitoring of the OEs that we've already been doing throughout this year. And I would be very interested in y'all's impression of that.
I was trying to let Chloe go first.
I
I don't know if she's there or if she's. Well, I'm in agreement because everything you've outlined so far, and just seeing when we're looking at, for example, this current rubric that we're in right now, you know, scrolling through, and so many people have confusion about what those standards are or mean, tells me in a nutshell, you know, that we need a different practice. So, and to your point, the fact that we're already monitoring operational, I don't see an issue with a 50-50 percentage and then putting results policies in place. My only thought would be that perhaps, and again, this is just me throwing out food for thought,
Please.
we come up with a certain number of policies that we plan to put in place. And I completely agree with, you know, again, like coming up with a more minimal amount of goals. But I think this is a project to be tackled over, let's just say, 2 years, because realistically, Frank, Dr. Rodriguez, is going to need to know what he needs to tackle for the next school year, October to October. And I don't think we can say in full confidence, like, we are going to do this and it will be in its full completion
Correct.
beginning this October to next October. So I think just having that understanding, like, this will be a fluid discussion, and this is amazing that we can all collaborate over the next year to then perhaps implement other, you know, metrics or policies for October 2024 through 2025. You know what I'm saying? Or add on.
Totally.
I also really think it's beneficial if we can go ahead and trim the fat off of what we're currently looking at that doesn't apply or doesn't make any sense.
Yes. And
I'm a huge proponent of trimming fat. Like, let's take
you
it
and
away.
me both. Ms. Gordon,
Yes.
what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I am for what's doing right for the superintendent, and listening at just trying to decipher this particular piece. Ingrid, I'm just saying, Madam Chair, if you're having a problem with, you know, deciphering it and trying to get explanations about it, I do think we need to really look at this. So I'm in favor of doing what is best for the superintendent and our board, and making this instrument, even for me, just easier to read and understand. You know, I mean, I'm serious, Madam Chair. If you're having difficulties, and I heard Dr. Rodriguez trying to share some insight on this, it shouldn't be that difficult to understand how we are going about evaluating and getting results for our superintendent in a way that we can all understand what's going on. So I'm for whatever it takes.
That's excellent.
I think it's really important too to be more simplistic, because then, for example, when our constituents ask, how is the superintendent held accountable? How are other professionals in the education system being held accountable? We would have an explanation they could understand. Whereas in the current situation of what we're looking at to tackle, I mean, how would we even explain this to the normal,
Exactly. Mhm.
person, and to give them the confidence that we, the district, is doing, we as the board are doing what we need to be doing, that Dr. Rodriguez is being held accountable in an appropriate fashion. But if we're struggling as the governing body to understand how he's being held accountable, then we can't even explain it to constituents. And I mean, I'm just echoing the importance of this at this point.
Well, I
would
agree
like to see it
wholeheartedly.
in a more simple format.
So, and I think we are, a lot of us are on the same page here in terms of, I think we want it to be fair to the superintendent, and we want to make sure that when we go to our constituents, that we can give them confidence that yes, we're holding him accountable. We're doing it fairly, so that it's not like the finance piece where it was really an unfair evaluation. And we said it at the time, this needs to be fixed. But so we want a fair, easy to understand and easy to communicate so that the constituents have confidence that we are indeed holding him accountable, right? Like it has to be that we're looking at all of this and we are
Correct.
really digging into the details, but it doesn't have to be quite so fussy and with all these national standards, especially since we have coherent governance, which has very clear guidelines. So this is what I would propose for this meeting. We're going to have a couple more meetings over the course of the summer, but I would like to see us bring to the board in June, at least, and Elizabeth, I think your point is that we can't just suddenly flip over and say, okay, here's your results. Now we're doing that. We have to kind of bring that up slowly and thoughtfully.
Correct. Yeah.
And so my thought initially, and I'm just we're all just throwing stuff out here. So feel free to say that you think I'm off base, but if we have, because what I see from our current policy is that we should be evaluating him on OEs and results, which to me is like a 50-50 split. We have the OEs. The OEs are well established. We've been reviewing them. We're in our second or third year of that. So I think we can say 50% of the weight of this evaluation is the monitoring reports, which should be summative at the end of the year, in August, at the end of the school year, before we do the evaluation in October. We got to figure out what this other 50% might be. And it may be that in 2023, if we start getting some result policies and building some consensus on the boards and having some direction, that becomes 25%. And then eventually we flip to where we have 50% of the evaluations, the operational expectations, and 50% the results. But we can kind of do that in more gradual steps. It doesn't have to be quite so, and now you're doing this. But I think too, one thing that coherent governance says is that when you implement coherent governance, and we really haven't implemented results policies yet, the first thing you do is you've got to establish a baseline, right? And here we are coming out of COVID. We're finally starting to get the numbers. The numbers aren't great, not for anything in the district's control, but just because of the national impact on education of the pandemic. So maybe this is a good time to say, okay, we're going to start building these results, and here's our baseline. Next year we're going to have this baseline and we're going to do some measuring against it, but we won't be totally measuring against it. And then maybe like you said, in a year or two, we really get those settled in and we have a good baseline and we can actually start really making some good accountable measuring. So that's kind of what I'm thinking coming out of this meeting, is that we're going to have another meeting. If you guys agree that 50% of the evaluation should be the operational expectations, and we can just start talking about what we do. Either we tweak what we have with this tool, or we're going to have to do something with this tool, in terms of we can't just abandon it and start over.
Right.
But I think
Yes.
that would be something to think about between now and our next meeting.
Okay.
What do you guys think? Yeah.
Sounds good.
I'm in agreement with you. Yes.
Would
I'm
you
in
guys be
agreement
willing
as
to make a motion then that 50% of that we recommend to the board, 50% of the 2022, 2023, I'm trying to think, my brain's frying here, school year be based on current operational expectation monitoring?
My wording may not be the same as yours. You're so good at making motions.
I'm
But
terrible.
I would be happy to try.
Well, let me
Um,
understand something. Aren't we in the 2022-23 school year?
Yes.
So why would we change this now? I don't understand. I thought we were working on 2023, 2024.
So there's two things going on. One, we're going to start putting results policy in for 2022, for 2023, 2024. This current evaluation, we are the results committee is charged with making adjustments to the evaluation every year about this time. And we've done that in the past. What I'm thinking and what I'm hoping would come out of this committee is that our operational expectations, which we are already in the process of evaluating. Every time you go to a committee meeting, you're looking at the OEs. So that's already in place. But that is supposed to be, according to policy, it's supposed to be part of our superintendent evaluation. So maybe for this current evaluation, which will happen in October, the dates get all crazy, right? So we're going to evaluate him in October of 2023 on his performance of this last year, right? The 2022, 2023 school year. But we should still be able to hold him accountable on the operational expectations. So that would be 50%. But we would leave 50% of the weighting of his evaluation to this other tool, which we're going to have to figure out. Does that make sense?
Not to me, but I would like to hold off on that so I could think about it. For some reason, it doesn't seem fair to me to quantify this at a time when we only have like 4 more months of his evaluation. So now we're saying, 50% of this is going to be operations, when 8 months ago he could have been focusing on operations. So,
well, he's been focusing on operations because
but
that's our
I was going
annual.
to say, he didn't have a number on it based on what you're saying. So now we're going to say 50% of this is operation, when HR, finance, and all that. I guess they take up the other 50%. I don't know.
Well, HR, finance are all included, and I'm not.
Right.
But
Which I still don't understand why HR is under operations. But anyway, what I'd like to do, just for me, I like to think about that, because I just like to have some time to just think about whether or not I guess what it is. At this time, I cannot say yes to that.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Smith?
So if I'm understanding you right, you're saying that not for this year, but for the next year, that you would want 50% of the evaluation to come to be under the operations. Is that what you're saying?
No, I would like next year for us to have some result policies so that we could start using them as per our policy. But here's my thing, Mr. Smith. I'm thinking we're supposed to, if you look, and I don't know if you were here when our superintendent board relation policy 5.7 says, and we voted on it, that there will be a formal summative evaluation of the superintendent based on results and operational expectations,
right?
Which, Ms. Gordon, is not operations. That gets confusing. There's a lot of confusing, and it's hard to do by Zoom, right? To do confusing stuff by Zoom. But so we're already should be holding him. Part of his summative evaluation should be the OEs that we've already been working on. So my thought was go ahead and use that. But go ahead.
And okay, but not for this, evaluation semester that we're on, but for the following year. So basically, you're giving him time to prepare for it. Is that what you're saying?
Only for the results section. My
Right.
take on it, and we're having discussion about it, is I think we can hold him responsible for the OEs, because we have been all year long through the monitoring reports.
Well, to speak to it, you do have some, but to some degree you do have some validity in that. I do strongly agree with you. I do agree with you, because at some point in time, we definitely did a lot of changing to the to the evaluation tool due to COVID. At some point in time, we do have to get back fully on track so that we are really monitoring what should be happening and what should be happening due to the OEs and the OEs, because the OEs go along with the model that we're under right now. So therefore, if we're not doing it, then we would need to change our model of how we operate, because if you would refresh my memory, what's the name of the model now?
The Michigan, the one, our current evaluation tool, the Michigan, I don't know what to
No,
call it.
no, not too, under the, was it not the court?
Coherent governance,
Yeah, the governance, there you go.
yeah, coherent governance.
And
Well-
according to the government, according to the governance that we're under, I believe what you're saying will line up, because I do remember the lady saying that, and I remember, David Scrivener having that conversation when we first changed it, that at some point in time, we need to eventually, we need to get back to the original, model of the governance. If not, we need to change it up.
Yeah,
And
well,
that's
and
what you're saying, excuse me, and I believe what you're saying is in line with the current governance that we're under. That's all I wanted to say.
thank you. I appreciate that feedback. And I understand, Ms. Gordon, exactly what you're saying, and I think it's getting confusing on Zoom. But what I would like to do, if Ms. Hay is willing to make the motion, I will.
Yes.
We can send us some information and then, and explain, and I think in a board meeting, I'll be able to explain a little bit better what I'm saying, because it's starting to all weave together. But then if we can have that discussion, the full board, even if you oppose the motion now or abstain from the motion now, if we can bring it to the full board, that will give us an opportunity to have the discussion in the June meeting. So, Robin, I'm going to go ahead and second Ms. Hayes' motion.
I
Would
need
you
to
like
get
me to?
first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Motion to recommend to the full board. I need a motion.
Okay.
I have it. Oh, I didn't know. I thought she was waiting on you for something. So are you good for me to go ahead and make the motion?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Okay, I would like to motion that the full board have superintendent, who is currently Dr. Rodriguez, evaluated on 50% operational expectations for the 2022-2023 school year, which for his contract runs October to October.
is it okay if I don't put all of that? I have a motion to
That's
recommend to
fine.
the full board to have the superintendent evaluated on 50% on the operational expectations. And then continue.
For the 2022-2023 school year or academic year. However, whatever verbiage,
2022-2023 school year
correct.
per contract, or do you want? Or just leave it
That'd be
there?
fine.
That's
'cause
fine, per
yeah.
contract, or you can leave it there. I wasn't sure how specific we need to be.
Yeah, because this is just to bring it to the board to as a recommendation, so. For discussion.
Who is seconding this?
I did.
Okay. So I have motion to recommend to the full board. Motion to recommend to the full board to have the superintendent evaluated on 50% on operational expectations for the 22-23 school year.
That'll work.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so, yep, it's up there. Okay, so all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
And Ms. Hay, did you vote?
Aye.
Okay,
Sorry, I
so
was muted.
it's gonna be 2-0, 1 abstention. Yeah, perfect. So I'm gonna have a big report to make to the June board meeting, but I will try and get as much of it done. I'll send you guys out some emails and get it tuned up before we bring it to the full board, if that's amenable to everybody.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And Mr. Campbell and Mr. Smith, please feel free if you have suggestions, comments, critiques. This is going to be an ongoing process, and it's a hard one to get started. So email with me or email the committee, and that would be really helpful.
Okay.
And with that, I think we have. I feel like we made some.
Decide our next meeting.
What?
Need to decide our next meeting, the date for
Yeah.
the next.
Did this time work for everybody?
No.
Yes.
No.
Okay, so what's okay, so Ms. Gordon, you said no. What's a good time frame for you? Let's see if we can find one the three of us can all land in.
Well, basically, for me, is today this is the third, no, this is the fourth Tuesday.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be meeting the fourth Tuesday of every month?
We don't
And-
have to, we can meet after the 13th. So I'm trying to pull my calendar up here.
You don't have a scheduled, a set date to meet. You're just kind of meeting when you're available.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to see us have a set meet date. You know, with all
What-
the other committees that we have going on. Well, while meeting in the mornings might be good for one person, it's definitely not that good for me. I mean, 11, 12 I could do, but 10:30-ish doesn't work for me.
Okay, and let me just say, Dr. Rodriguez and Mr. Fritz, thank you so much for coming to the meeting. You guys can sign off because we're just going to do some housekeeping at this point. Okay, so you think, Elizabeth, would 11:30 work okay, or is that getting into,
Can we settle in 11?
would 11 work for you, Ms. Gordon?
11 would work better.
Okay, and what day of the week? Does it matter to anybody in particular?
No, no,
For me, I have childcare Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Okay. Of those 3 days, Ms. Gordon, do you have a preference?
no, I don't.
So do we want to do the, what works on your schedule, Robin?
So the next, June 15th, which is a Thursday, is available.
Okay.
So, but that is, after your board meeting on the 13th.
Do you guys want to do that on the 15th then? Does that work for everybody at 11? And we can change it if things come up, because I know June can be kind of
Yeah,
hectic.
I'm gonna have a child to pick up right at noon, so I don't know that my full attention will be available like the last 15 minutes if we run an hour.
What's the
Um,
next Tuesday look like? The 20th? Oh, wait, no, I'm not going to be here. I could do Friday. No, that next week's not good for me.
And don't you want to meet before the board meets on the 13th, Ingrid?
No, I think what we'll do is
Okay,
we're going to present to the board, we're going to, the idea of a questionnaire, and I'm going
Okay.
to email you guys lists that we can all kind of add onto like a Google Doc, and then we'll hopefully have a little bit of a formal thing, and that'll be our first cut. Say, okay, here's the list, rank them, and then we'll come back in July and kind of refine again before
Okay.
the August work session.
So do you want me to find a date do you want to find any more dates in June, or do you want me to move to July?
I'm good with June, that week after the board meeting, the week after that week, the 20th, whatever, I'm not available, I'm out of town.
What about the 16th, Friday, the 16th well, no, because we're closed on Fridays, so never mind.
Let's just do the 15th. I was just letting you guys know ahead of time. It'll be
Okay.
tricky for me at the end, but I don't
Well,
want
the
to
meeting
keep
is-
pushing it out, and it may be good to have the meeting when the board meeting's fresh in our minds.
So we're gonna say Thursday, the 15th at 11 o'clock.
Correct.
Yep,
Correct.
all
All
right.
right. And are we keeping it remotely, correct?
Probably, yeah.
Yes, please.
All right. Results on the 15th at 11 o'clock
By Zoom.
by Zoom. Got it.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Thank you, guys. I think we had a great discussion. It's a hard
Thank you,
task, but I
Ingrid.
think we're inching along, so I appreciate it.
Yes.